Was that these kids, they work hard, hungry, eager to learn, eager to please, which is what you want on the first day. I wasn't. I was pleased with the effort. There's some little things you got to clean up, just a different way of how Coach Whipple wants things done in practice, just a totally different mindset, and they're still getting used to that. But as far as effort, it was great. I was happy with that. I was pleased with it.
So, I am interested in these little things that you have to figure out when new people come together. Like you mentioned, the Whipple's way of doing things. For example,
we set the line of scrimmage about 30, 45 yards from the goal line. And the whole idea on offense is to score touchdowns, right? So even though you get touched, that doesn't mean you're down. Finish, go score. Get used to crossing the line. Things like that. Little, when we run play actions, in the back just not running, faking whenever run play we're faking, just running around out there. You actually have your eyes somewhere else as well. And just those little nuances that we just need to get used to. They got to get used to me and my style of coaching. I'm different. Obviously, they told me that I'm already different, but I'm always saying something. I'm always making sure that, they're on their toes. And in the run, just footwork things. I just have a different philosophy about how your footwork is supposed to be, where your eyes are supposed to be in the run game. Just don't take the handoff and run in there. I coached the offensive line for a year and a half, so I understand, where what's going on up front and how hard that is. And if you got a running back there dancing or not doing the right footwork or hitting the hole too soon or too late, it's going to add for, it could be a 10-yard run now, 2-yard run. So there's those little things like that, so I understand what to do.
Pretty unusual to have an O-line guy become a running back guy.
Well, I started out, I was a running back coach at first, and then when I got to University of Wyoming, I was a tight ends and tackles. So I coached the tight ends and tackles for a year and a half, and then we switched offenses at Wyoming, went to more of a two-back set. And Coach Glenn, Lincoln guy, moved me back to the running backs to be a little more involved in the run game. So, but I thought it was very invaluable being a part of the up front and learning what those 5 to 6 guys have to do on every snap, and all the line calls and the footwork and the technique, and you get a different perspective of what goes on with those guys up front. And I think that year and a half really helped me more than anything as far as being able to coach running backs and understanding the tempos and eyes and landmarks and all that stuff.
This is a philosophical question. Do you think it would help coaches if they bounced around more like that?
Oh, yeah. In any sport, really, I think just because you want to be a complete coach, and so you want to be able to understand and know all the nuances and every little detail of all the finer points of every position on either side of the ball. So I do think it does help coaching and bouncing around. I've coached every position on offense except for. I've coached every position on offense at some time. Yeah, at some point and somewhere I've done it. Either in the spring, fall. I haven't coached defense, but I haven't coached every spot on special teams except for the kicker and the punter. I'm not that big of a psychologist, so I don't know if I can do it.
What's your least favorite position to coach?
The least favorite position to coach? That is a great question because I love football, so I really haven't found a position that I don't like to coach. That's a good question.
What's the hardest position to coach?
Oh, boy. Front line on kickoff. That's the hardest position to play in all football, the front line, because you got to run 15 yards, turn your back, turn around and find someone that's running at you full speed and try and stop them. That's the hardest position to coach. Just teaching the guys how to do that. But
like taking the charge in basketball.
Exactly, but there's not going to be a penalty called.
A couple of the defenders were talking about Jaquez and how they liked what they saw from him the first day. I know it's the first day, but what's sort of your first impression of him and sort of your challenge to him?
He's a big person. He's huge. He's big. And he's fun to be around. Ever since I've been here, he's been a great kid to be around. They all have been great to be around. Just their eagerness to learn, their eagerness to want to get better, to find out how to do this, how to do that, how do I operate, how's this offense going to change. But Jacquet, he's a great kid. I've been very pleased and happy with all of them. Just, it's fun to be around, fun group, all of them.
what do you think? I'm sure you looked at some of the film from last year,
Mm-hmm.
or haven't you had time, but Ramir got some playing time and then had the injury. What do you sort of think of Ramir and what did he show?
Ramir's got really good feet. Of course, obviously he's got really good speed. Just reps. He needs reps, full-pace reps, full-speed reps. Just, I love what Coach Raiolo is doing, what he's doing with those guys up front, and we've got to get used to seeing that, hugging things a little bit tighter and confidence. But, he has all the tools that you're looking for, and, especially in the back at his size. He's got speed, he's got feet, he's got hands, he's got want to. So all those other stuff, you can work with the rest of that.
When you go out on the recruiting trail looking for guys, what are the traits that you would say Bryan Applewhite, running back, needs to have?
Toughness. I want a tough kid first. You can't, I don't care how much this game has changed. Tough still wins. I look for athletic kids, multiple sport kids. It's hard for me to recruit a running back that does not run track. If he doesn't run track, he better be special in another sport, basketball, baseball, something where he's really, really special, where I can see other athletic abilities. So toughness, multi-sport athletes, kids that run track, and then I want a smart kid, one that is passionate about football and loves football. At the end of the day, you've got to love what you're doing, because this isn't an easy sport. No, who in this table wants to get up at 4 o'clock, eat breakfast at 6, go put on pads, be on the field by 8 o'clock, practice for 2.5 hours, take a shower, then go to class? So you got to love what you're doing. You got to love it. You got to love it. So I want kids that love football.
Bryan, are there guys that you're starting to work with now here that you've already learned enough about to know that they've got multiple traits that you just described?
Yeah, part of my job is also bringing those traits out that they don't have too, right? Because they have them, or else they wouldn't be doing what I just said. They wouldn't be getting up in the morning and going through all that stuff and then hear my mouth and then go to class the rest of the day. So they have all those traits about the want to. Now it's just, developing them into the way that you want them to be. And all kids want to please, they want to be good. They all have goals and dreams, and they wouldn't be out there right now if they didn't want to do it.
How do you go about molding?
You show what you want. So when they do something, when they run a play exactly how it's supposed to be ran, or they run a technique exactly how you want to do it, you show it, and then you show what is not what you want, and then and every time they get closer and closer to where you want them to be, you keep showing and reinforce it. But the one time, here's the thing where it gets hard. The one time they do it right, exactly how you want to do it, now you've got to hold them to that standard right now, because you showed me you can do it once. If you can do it once, you can do it every time now. And that's where that's where I like to apply the pressure right there. Like building diamonds or busted pipes. The minute you show me that you've done it once, now I've got you, because you showed me you can do it. It's like my kids, the first time when they were little, learn how to spell their names. The first time they did it right, well, you better do it right every time now, because you did it once. There's no forgetting. And so that's how you do it. And I think once you get them to a point where they can believe in themselves because they know they can do it every time, and then now that's when you start seeing real growth.
Hey, the guy who you went out and got in recruiting this offseason, Anthony, who's here.
Oh yeah, Anthony Grant.
You got AJ too.
Yeah.
He's not here. Grant, what traits did you see in him, and how do you think he can potentially impact this group right away?
So I recruited Anthony a little bit when I was at TCU, and he has on film what you're looking for. He was tough. He did not shy away from contact. He had a burst to get away from people. He had a very good tendency to run behind his pads. He looked like he was explosive. Well, it wasn't. He was explosive on film. You could see that. And talking to the coaches that he'd been around at the junior colleges, the high school, and when he was at Florida State, they all said the kid loves football. And now it's just a matter of him finding his groove. And it's an adjustment for him, just like it's an adjustment for me. There's one way they do things at the Mexico military, and there's a different way that they do things in Nebraska. Like there's one way Coach Patterson ran the TCU's program, to where Coach Frost runs his, and I had to adjust. I had to adjust from Mike Bobo in Colorado State to Coach Patterson, that was a great experience. I went from an offensive head coach to a defensive head coach. If anyone's ever done that, we can have some stories about that. That's different. But and it's just like the same thing with Anthony. You just got to adjust the way things go about and get into your groove and develop that habit, develop the habits of how everything's going to be. Like, you just kind of really get in your routine.
What's different about offensive head coach and defensive head coach?
Defensive head coach, it's all about the defense, but they win every drill. Every drill. Oh, yeah, sack. They wasn't even close to the quarterback. It's still a sack. Practice is geared towards it's just a different, and I get it because the offensive coaches don't want to lose, and defensive coaches don't want to lose. It's just different because, Coach P has been doing it he was a head coach for 24 years, so the defensive head coach for 24 years. So you weren't going to win as an offensive coach. It's just yes, sir.
Does the physicality of practice change?
No, not with me. Mm-mm. No. We're physical at Colorado State. We're physical at TCU, and we put on the pads. We're physical at Nebraska because, like I said, tough still wins. You can't build a dynasty without being nasty. And at the end of this game is about tackling, blocking, catching, running. This is a collision sport. Okay, contact is basketball. So we got to train. We got to practice like that too. I think we've gotten away from that in this sport real bad. It's still a collision sport. Now you got to teach them the correct ways to have those collisions. Your head up, run your feet, see who you're hitting. Don't ever hit. Don't ever put yourself in a bad situation. But at the end of the day, there's still a collision. It's a collision sport.
What kind of definition among this group of backs do you hope to have coming out of April 9th?
Definition? You mean the depth?
Who could be your workhorse? Who are going to be your top guys? I mean, you want that to be decided in August? Do you want them to go a long way toward setting that rotation here in the spring?
Well, I want to create as much competition as possible because competition does two things for you. You get better or you quit. I want to make sure that, so to answer your question, if it ends up being a bell cow on April 9th, all right, I will set a depth chart. But then when we start practice again in August, I'm cleaning it. Start all over because kids change over the summer. The kid that I may have number 3, that might be his motivation. Oh, I want to be number 1, or I thought I was number 1. So his summer might be totally geared to being the number 1 guy. So I'm not big unless it's someone's returning and he was second Heisman votes. Okay, I'm sorry, your time will come later, unless someone beats him out. But if I set a depth chart at the end of April, once we start practice again in August again, because the season hadn't started yet, and they all know, and I say this every day, the back or running backs who are going to play are the ones that are going to help Nebraska win every one Friday and the rest of Saturdays. But that's what I want, because if I only have one bell cow for University of Nebraska, then I didn't do two things. I didn't do a good enough job recruiting. I didn't do a good enough job developing them, because running backs, it's not if, it's when you get hurt at running back, and we've got to have at least 3. That the number, and I don't call and when I set out the depth chart, so you guys know, I'm not going to have a 1, 2, 3. It's going to be or, because it's 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, because if I've done my job correctly, then they're all a 1. Because to me, it doesn't matter who gets the first. I've never seen a football game decided on the first carry of a game. It's the ones after that. That's what matters.
Is there such thing as too many? I mean, you've got a lot of guys that are potentially.
I've been where I've got 10 right now. I've been where I've had 12. I've been where I had 4. That's not enough. 4, I wouldn't do that. I would strongly suggest not have more than 4. You've got to be very, very careful and diligent and focused on how you're rotating the reps and making sure the guys that are starting to separate themselves, if they're getting enough reps, that they're getting better, and you're still developing your depth chart as well at the same time. And so I go back and I'll watch this practice 2 more times before I watch it with them. And the last 2 times I'm watching it is to make sure, okay, Jaquez ran this play 3 times. Anthony Gratt ran it once. Okay, the next time this plays concepts come up, I've got to flip it where Anthony's running 3 and Jaquez gets them once. And so that's what I'll go back through very thorough with a comb and make sure, I kind of got a tick mark. Okay, Jaquez, he's ran this play 10 times. He's got it right 10 times. He's good. Anthony's ran it 10 times. He's got it right 5 times. Obviously, he's not good on that play. He doesn't understand the concept now. So I've got to make, so that's what I do, and I enjoy doing that because, again, that's part of, like he asked, developing. That's how I'm starting to develop them, is I make sure I kind of cover with the fine-tooth comb. It takes a lot of time, but, the end result is what I like, is what I want.
One of the things Ramir said was the difference between last year and so far this year was just the energy in the entire offense, but particularly in the running back room. Why is energy something that you try to bring, and why is it especially important for running backs?
I mean, just as football in general, you just got to have some energy. I love this sport. I love playing it. I love coaching it. I love watching it. I love learning about it. And, if you're not loving what you're doing, then what are you doing, right? And so that's just who I am because I love it so much. I mean, I'm sitting there while I watch my daughter's playing the live stream volleyball tournament on Saturday, and I'm up walking around in my office clapping, and getting mad. That's just who I am. And so I don't know, it's just, I'm glad he said that because I want to come off like I have some energy, and it's not fake, it's authentic. I'm tired right now. I don't know if you guys can tell, I've lost my voice. I hit 10,000 steps at 9:30 on my watch. That's the first time I've done that. Yeah, I probably hit about 20,000 today in 6 miles.
What do you love about recruiting?
What do I love about recruiting? Building relationships. I love building the relationships with the families of the student athletes that I'm recruiting, and I love the opportunity that I have and the university I'm working for has impacting a family's life for 40 years. That's probably my biggest joy in it, is building the relationships and allowing a kid who's coming from Monroe, Louisiana, the north side, that just hasn't left Louisiana before, has an opportunity to go get an education at a fine university and play football at the same time. The impact that that's going to have on that young man's life for 40 years is a lot greater than that football, the 4 years is. And so I love being able to go into the areas and give kids an opportunity, like to come from Beaufort, Georgia, and come to Lincoln, Nebraska. I was at Colorado State. I recruited a kid from Atlanta, Georgia, he'd never been west of the Mississippi River. And he comes to Colorado State and lives in Fort Collins, and now he still lives there as he graduated because he loved it. And, yes, you want to recruit players to come play and help you win, but also those opportunities that a lot of kids don't get through athletics. One, get their school paid for. When they know it, when they probably, let's be real, 90% of them come from somewhere where they can't pay for school, right? And so giving them that opportunity where they can get a free education and play football and build those relationships with those families. I've got kids I recruited that I have never coached. I just recruited them. They still call me every day. They'll call me about once a month, Coach, thank you for giving me that opportunity. Thank you for believing in me. So that's what I love about it.
Are there any unique challenges coaching your position group against Big Ten defenses versus Big 12?
Shoot, football's football. Big Ten, from what I've seen right now, is it's a very run-stopping defense. Defenses in the Big Ten. And that's probably what goes on within the offenses in the Big 10 and the Big 12, for what I've seen so far, because the wide open offenses, they're more geared towards the, exotic blitzes, exotic fronts with multiple coverages. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any exotic blitzes. But I guess, I was in the Big 12 for 2 years and coached against several Big 12 schools, and I was at Colorado State, so I had a better idea of what was going on defensively in the Big 12 than I did in the Big 10. But just from watching them from afar, and it's probably the biggest difference right now. Probably stouter up front in the D tackles in the Big 10 than they are in the Big 12.
You came from TCU, obviously, in Texas. What has been the reception with you being at Nebraska, recruiting down in Texas?
Nebraska's back is what they said, and they were excited about it. It was very interesting, the reception and how excited every school was that I walked into that I had the Cornhusker, the N, or Nebraska on my shirt. And it was a different reception than when I walked in when I had TCU on it. Because Nebraska has a strong presence in Texas, still. Even though they haven't played a game in Texas in I don't know how many years, they still have a strong presence in Texas. And it was very warm, very accepting, very welcoming, very exciting, open doors. You know, conversations were different with the coaches now that I'm at Nebraska than it was when I was at TCU.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's Nebraska. People have not forgot who Nebraska is. They haven't. I mean, this is maybe I might be biased because of where I went to high school, and Nebraska was like, that was the place. But people haven't forgot that this is still the University of Nebraska, and they haven't forgot what happened when they played Florida in the national championship. They have not forgot what happened when Eric Crouch was the quarterback here. You know, they haven't forgot that this is the original RBU. You know, they still know that Neil Smith played here. They know that there's an O-lineman that has a award named after him that played here. You know, they know that Coach Osborne's won more games than anybody. I mean, it's Nebraska, and that I think that's why. And that, you know, and it was more, you know, the coaches that are our age, because they don't, and that's probably what it is more than anything. Now you ask that question, I sit back and think about it. It was the coaches that are our age that remember what happened in the 70s and 80s and 90s and what Nebraska was like. And I think that's probably what it was more than anything, because they remember. And that helps a lot, because if they remember, they're going to tell the kids that were recruiting at their schools, hey, this is what Nebraska used to be like. I mean, they're recruiting you. That's a big deal, you know.
You talked about relationships and recruiting with A.J. Allen. How special was that one in particular? A guy who's committed to you one place. You're on the move and running on a sprint to starting your new job, and he commits to you here.
So AJ and I have a very, very close relationship. And that started last summer. And he is such a good kid. And he comes from a very good family. He's got his mom, his sisters, his brothers, his nephew. You know, it was nice. It was, you know, it made the relationship more meaningful that he kind of waited around to see what I was going to do. And he would call me every day. You know, I had some options, and he's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I don't know. And then when Coach Frost offered me the job, I knew where I was going, because those other options weren't what Nebraska was. You know, I could have gone somewhere and been average every year, but I've been winning, but I've been an average team in an average team in a good conference every year, or I'd come to Nebraska and have a chance to be one of the top 5 programs again in the country, period. And it was special when I told AJ where I was going and what it was, and he kind of got a tear in his eye, you know.
What made you believe that this place is going to be special again under Coach Frost? Because obviously people on the outside look at the win-loss, they're like, I don't know. Well, what made you believe